Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. Well, we've had an absolutely awesome couple of weeks here where we've been partying on with the Commonwealth Games, and unashamedly I'm going to brag a little bit and say we topped the medal tally here in Australia, and that was really nice. So my eyes are square, and if I've got dark circles under my eyes, you know it's because I've been up watching all the sports late of a night instead of getting no beauty sleep. So on to another topic that I think that we need to cover before we start the show. And just recently, in the last couple of hours, I've heard on CNN the passing of Mrs. Barbara Bush. Now, she was one of your former First Ladies there in America. She was a great icon. She's somebody that I think all of us women can take our hat off to and bow to, because she was the epitome of a beautiful, strong, dynamic woman who stood by her husband and her family and did her part in shaping history. And I think it's going to be a sad, tragic loss for the world today that we've lost Mrs. Barbara Bush, because she certainly was an inspiration to women and showing them what they can achieve, that, you know, you can carve out your own path, even and walk beside a very, very powerful man who will be shaping history. And she will go down in history as one of the most important dynamic women of the last, 100 years. And I think that's really important. And I salute you, and we wish her family well in this very difficult time in the days ahead that are going to seem like their world is never going to be the same again, and it won't be, but it'll become normal in a different sort of way as they cherish the memories and hear her laughter, and they'll hear her words many, many times from the great clouds beyond. So we salute you, Mrs. Barbara Bush. Rest in peace, my sweet. Now, on to today's show. We're going to kick off the show with our Simply Tarot card of the week. And this week it's a really interesting card because it's the Knight of Pentacles. Now, for a lot of people, they don't quite understand what court cards mean. And by court cards, I mean the knights, the pages, the kings and the queens. And they say, why are all these people showing up in my cards? Yes, they can be people. Yes, they can be the first meaning on the card, but 9 times out of 10, they're the secondary meaning on the card. So if you can't relate to a court card coming out in your tarot reading, then look at the secondary meaning and say, does that fit with the information and what I'm getting and how my reading is proceeding? So the knights are always young men up to the age of 25. When we're working with the Knight of Pentacles, this is a young, dark-headed man with dark hair, dark eyes, not always dark skin, but can have dark skin. It's not somebody that's fair and blue or green-eyed like me. It's somebody that's very, very dark. The secondary meaning is visitors. That means people dropping in for a chat, people that are unexpected that are coming to visit, not necessarily with luggage, but they always have some news or something of importance to share with you. So it's visitors with news to share. So if you look out for that, if it's not the young man that's coming up in your life this week, then open the door. Maybe you're going to get some unexpected visitors and they've got something important to share with you. So we're going to keep the show moving along at a fairly hurtling pace today so that we can get to our 2 callers. Now, I'd like to sort of take our little trip around the universe first before we do anything, because it's a major, major week. We've had the new moon in Aries, which we're still currently sitting in. So if you want to go back and binge and watch last week's show, you'll learn more about in Aries. But we've also had Mercury go retrograde. And I hear you say hallelujah. Now, all of a sudden, communication is going to get sorted out and things are going to be a lot easier to deal with. Well, yes, they will be. But we are still currently in the Aries time of the year. So we've still got quite a bit of energy floating around in Aries at the moment. We've got Chiron, the planet of the wounded healer, has just moved into Aries. And I won't talk much about that today, but I'll bring that to you in the next couple of weeks. We've also got the sun, which is where the sun sign is in Aries. But to make things happen, to stride, to bring new things into our life in whatever way that we want to. And that goes right across the board for the 12 signs, not just Aries people. And because it's conjunct or holding hands with Uranus means things can happen out of literally nowhere. sometimes things happen in our lives and we think, why did that have to happen? Oh, it's a disaster, it's a catastrophe. And then a little bit further down the track, we think, wow, I'm glad that happened because it was the most amazing thing that ever happened in my life, cleared out all the crap and the trash and the garbage in my life and enabled me to go over here and do this, which really sings better with my soul and makes me feel a more complete human being. So sometimes things happen at the time that we can't see or we can't understand, and we just get bogged down in the emotion of this is a disaster, but it turns out to be the best thing that's ever happened. Some people say that it's something that we unconsciously wished for. Look, I'm one of those ones that sits on the fence with this, because I do believe we create our own universe to a point. But I also believe very strongly in the cycles of astrology that I've been working with for over 30 years, and nothing happens by coincidence. It's divine timing. It's the precise time. You can pinpoint it on the calendar. That's why that happened today. So in that way, whether it's an unconscious or a conscious energy that we're working with, or we're tapping into a higher force, things always happen when they're meant to. Now, the other part I'd like to focus on in our little glimpse around the universe is the fact that we've got Venus conjunct or holding hands with the moon. Now, why is this important as it's in Taurus? Well, anybody that's been searching for a new relationship, now may very well be the time when love could cross your path. Now, just be aware, this person could be very different from anybody else you've dated or ever been interested in before. It could be a very stabilising relationship, but it could also start as a very unusual or unexpected meeting. Hence, going back to the Sun conjunct Uranus, where you could go somewhere you've never been before because you've had a flat tyre and you've gone in to have a drink while you're waiting for the tow truck to come, or the automobile club to come and change your tyre for you, and you happen to randomly meet somebody while you're in having a lemonade or getting a cup of coffee, and wow, this is how things happen. So be on the lookout for unusual and unexpected ways if you're searching for love in the next 7 days. That now takes me on to our Eco-Soy candle of the week, and because we are in the Aries energy, I thought we should really feature the fire sign candle, because this is one of my favourite candles. It really is, I suppose because I'm a fire sign, but it was one of the first ones that I designed. Firstly, we designed the tarot candle, and then I went on to design the astrology range, which comprised of 4 candles for the 4 elements, and this is the fire sign one, which rules the signs of Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. And I suppose it's one of my favourites, as I said, because I'm a fire sign. But when I picked the fragrance for this, it was like I couldn't drink it in enough. It was like, wow, this is just so amazing. This is just so right. And that's how I went on to pick the fragrances for all the candles, was they had to resonate with me with what I was trying to achieve. So for people that are fire signs, or people that aren't fire signs that want to start new projects in their life, that want to get a bit of oomph, a bit of fire into their life, a bit of passion happening, this is the perfect candle for that. So again, you would work with your candle in the way that we talk about every week. Write your intentions of what you'd like to bring in. I like to have it in 3 tiers, the immediate, the not so far in the future, and then the more futuristic sort of plans, that the long range plans that we're working on. Read it out aloud. Burn your candle between 15 minutes to 2 hours per day. Preferably, this is sort of something you'd like to do for about 7 days so that you really intensify the energy. Yes, you can burn different candles at different times in the day or at the same time of the day and have them grouped together for argument's sake, you might be trying to bring in a new business, so you'd have the fire sign candle going. But if we were in a moon cycle and you were working with your full moon candle and the energy of the full moon, you could have that in a separate group, burning at the same time simultaneously. But don't forget to really focus on what it is that you're trying to bring in as you light that particular candle. That's really, really important. So these candles, I've personally got up to 100 hours out of these, and that's probably because I'm a bit of a tightwad when it comes to making my dollar stretch further. And even though these candles come with 2 wicks in some of them, I only ever burn them with 1, and I find that I can get up to 100 hours. The recommended hours on the candle making suppliers website is 60 hours, but I've found I've always got a lot more than that out of it, so I must look after my candles properly. For those of you that are wanting to travel or have a very small space that you want to use your candles in, you can pop into our website and buy a gift pack of any 3 candles of your choice. This week, of course, I'm featuring the 3 fire sign candles. These ones are recommended to burn up to 15 hours. I can say I've probably personally got 18, 19 hours out of them. And again, keeping the wicks short, keeping them out of the drafts, not under curtains, and certainly away from children and pets is a very important thing. So candle magic is something that we can use to do meditations with. We can use it to bring intentions, purpose and direction into our life. Or sometimes I just burn them because I like a particular fragrance and I haven't really set any intent. But they were designed as not necessarily decorative candles, but as intent, purpose and direction candles. So that leads me on to where can you buy my candles. If you want to head to my website, which is www.amandahallpsychic.com.au, you will find everything there on the website that you need to know. Don't forget, when you're at the shopping cart, type in the word in capital letters radio and you will get a discount for watching the show. So this leads me on to part 2, I beg your pardon, of the houses in astrology. Now, I know with astrology, people have sort of been messaging me and saying, thank you, Amanda, you're really demystifying it. You're making it simple. You're making it idiot-proof. Even I can understand it. And I'm really finding this quite fascinating. So houses was one of those things that people kept asking me questions about. How do you understand what house, or how do you find out where the houses are? Well, that's very, very simple. You would need to get an astrology chart, just a wheel erected with your date, time and place of birth. That would then give you the exact house positions for you personally. Now, if you don't have your time of birth, then we would use what's known as an equal house system on a sunrise chart. So all the houses would then be 30 degrees. So your first house would then be put your sun sign on the first house. So that's a quick way of doing it if you don't know your birth time or you don't want to invest in a chart. And look, most astrologers would do them for a few dollars. They shouldn't be any more than $10 or $20 to have one sent to you after they've calculated it on the computer and, send it to you in an e-file. So we're going on to houses 4, 5 and 6. So house number 4 to me is the house of the home. This is where we do the nurturing. This is where we feel secure. This is the place that we retreat to. This is our sanctuary. This is what we need to, how we conduct, or how our home would function. So, depending on the energy that's on the 4th house would then flavour what type of home you would create or what type of home you've come from. House number 5 is where we start to look at the public stuff. This is where I want to perform. I want to go out there and see what love that I can give to the world. It's I. It's the house of performance. It's the house of fame. It's also the house of children. And it's a very sort of dynamic sort of house because it's where I really want to shine, but it's also where I want the world to sort of applaud me as well. So bearing in mind the first 6 houses that we've been working with are the I houses. So they're all very self-centered. So it's where I get my attention. It's where I want to give, if I want to give love, if I want to perform, if I want this, if I want that. And I'm very protective of my children, which is different from the 4th house, which is the home. That's the dwelling, that's the building, that can be the family. But the 5th house is technically your children, not your extended family. But I think with children, I would bring in blended families in that your stepchildren or children of them coming into you with a marriage or a relationship would also fit into the 5th house very nicely. So the 6th house and the final one we're working with this week is again a very selfish house. It's the service that I want to give. It is the house of work, and this is paid work, not necessarily profession. It's the one that where we work, where we get the money to pay our weekly bills. But it's also the house of physical health. So this is where we look for physical ailments in the body or weakness in the body. And this is why it's important, if you've had your own chart done, then whatever's on the 6th house cusp or on the 6th house, whatever the astrological energy is, that's where you look for the weaknesses in your body. So they would change with the different energy. And this may be where you'll pick up an ailment or an illness that you get that doesn't relate to the family DNA. It can come in through the 6th house. So it's really interesting. Astrology is one of those very fascinating areas where I think that there's always so much to learn, and there's always so much that we can learn from focusing on where astrology takes us. Next week, we'll be looking at the next 3 houses, which will be 7, 8 and 9, and that'll be part 3 in the series. Of course, we'll have our glimpse around the universe next week too, but we're going to take our first call, and that's Charmaine in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Are you there, Charmaine?
Yes,
Charmaine.
Hi. Hello.
Can I help you, sweetie? Do you have a question for me?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
I was married to a very fantastic man. I lost him about almost 3 years ago, and I had to take over his business. I'm a restaurant owner now, and I've been working really hard and made lots of changes. Restaurant is doing well, but I just needed to see if we can connect with him and see how I'm doing. I'm always constantly worried about not doing good enough, and this is a legacy I have from a man I love, and I put my heart and soul into it. So I was wondering if I can get some kind of a message.
Okay, sweetie. First things first, I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to connect with him directly. I mean, we've got a very limited time space, and unless he's ready to come forward. But first and foremost, I must say to you, my extreme condolences on your loss. I know what it's like to go through widowhood. It's a very exclusive club that we don't want any more members to, that's for sure. But the first thing that I picked up as you were telling me this was my heart was really open. I felt really a very, very loving energy. So I'm assuming that's coming from your husband, even though he hasn't sort of presented himself physically in front of me in a way that I could describe something to you about him that would mean something. But what I was getting was this very overwhelming feeling of my heart is about to burst with such pride, that I'm really so happy, I'm really excited that I couldn't cram another piece in there if I tried. So I'm taking that as a direct message from him that he is more than astounded, happy, excited and everything else with what you've done. But he was also giving me the feeling, and I'm going to say a feeling, not necessarily a direct sign again, that it's okay if and when you decided that you don't want to do this anymore, that you don't have to hang on to it because of his memory and what the two of you work so hard for, that he's giving you permission to do what is right for you. He doesn't want you to stay shackled to the past if that's not what you want. So maybe that was a question that was rolling around in your head that you didn't know quite how to ask, but he's already preempted that and answered it for you.
Well, the only thing is that I really am loving what I'm doing, and I think it was very healing for me. I just, the perfectionist in me is always struggling, and I'm never happy with what I do. And in a sense, this is really, takes most of my energy. I feel sometimes depleted by worrying, although I really enjoy what I do, and it heals me on so many levels. So that's why that I asked him. I asked him to come forward and tell me what I need to be doing.
Yeah, but I don't think he necessarily wants to give you direction or instruction from beyond. What he wants you to do is do what makes you happy. He shared with me he couldn't be happier. His heart is bursting with pride and admiration. So there isn't anything he'd ask you to change. It's about what's going to make you happy. But I also felt with him sharing with me that energy of that when the time comes and you decide you want to follow another dream, that's okay too. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to keep hanging on to it once it's past the healing stage, or you feel that you want to explore another Mount Everest. That's fine with him too, because that's what he loved about you. He loved that you were never satisfied, that you were always striving for something more. And it's really hard when you're a perfectionist like that, because nothing is ever completed. Once you learn to understand that and work with that energy and say to yourself, that's okay, it's all right for me to never feel that, needing to sit on top of the mountain and say I've made it and I'll have a rest and just look around and enjoy, the fruits of my labours. That's okay, because that's who you are. You know what I mean? You can pass the baton on to someone else and go on to the next Mount Everest. That's what keeps you going.
Yes, correct. That is so correct. Thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much.
he's around you all the time. He just keeps showing me bigger pink hearts. I don't know whether he was a very romantic man, but he's just done nothing but show me a barrage of pink hearts flicking across in front of my eyes.
Oh.
I've never actually seen a symbol like that before. So you're very much the first one, Charmaine, that's ever given me a symbol like that, like you see on people when they do a Facebook Live and all the pink hearts go across the screen. That's what he's doing, but he's not doing one at a time. He's doing about 1,000 at a time.
Oh. Well,
so you should feel very honoured by that. I don't think there's anything that you're doing that he's not happy with. He just keeps showing me these hearts. He's not coming in with anything else. So please, darling, take that as his way of sending you loving energy and telling you he still misses you and he still loves you and you're still his girl. And you always will be.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Have a great night. We're going to go on to Christina into Manson in Michigan in the USA. Are you there, Christina?
Yes, I am.
How can I help you tonight, Christina?
Basically, I just kind of would like just some general information, whatever you have for me. Just any
it's
sort of
easier for me to work with a direct question, Christina, if that's okay with you. If you shoot me what you need to know, it enables me to tap in quicker in the short space of time we have here on the show.
Okay. I guess I'm just looking for what I should be working on in my life right now.
Well, I think what you need to be working on in your life right now is stop putting yourself under so much pressure. You seem to be putting yourself under so much pressure as if you should be searching for something or commencing something. I think you just need to go with the flow. Instead of sort of constantly having these things that you've got to tick off on the to-do list, they're sort of saying to me, leave the list blank. It's okay. It can be blank sometimes. It doesn't have to have 900 things on there to cross off. You know, sometimes I think you put far too much pressure on yourself. Has this year been about endings and change and transformation for you, like doors closing, friendships finishing, things getting as if they're closing in to start again?
Okay.
Has there been some changes like that?
Yep, there has.
Yeah. Well, to me, as your world starts to shrink, that's an indication then that not necessarily are you doing anything wrong. It's just we're closing things off to get it to a point that when we start to expand back out again, it's like we've culled things out of our life that are no longer necessary to us. And that sounds a very callous way of looking at friendships ending because somebody's moved upstate or somebody's passed on. But we can't take everything with us. Your life is like a closet. When the closet gets full, we've got to empty some of the clothing out, don't we? So we can put new garments in there. Well, it's the same with our lives. We've got to let things go so we can attract new. I'm being shown here from June onwards, I feel that we're going to be back on the expansion part again, not on the shrinking part. I did also feel by August that you would be seriously contemplating whether or not you're in the right job. Is that something that has crossed your mind a couple of times this year about, is this the right job for me? Am I really happy here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the time's right yet to make that final decision, but what I'd like to see you do now is do some active steps towards it. Have a look at your resume, see if there's anything there that needs, updating. Is there any courses I might need to go to get the more latest up-to-the-minute qualification? Do I want to stay in this particular line of work? If not, what skill set do I need to sort of go into something different? I sort of feel it's going to be along the same lines but with a twist, something different. We need to add something else different to the mix. Was there something that you were interested in about 7 or 8 years ago, career-wise, that it wasn't quite the right time for you to get into it, or they weren't paying enough money, or it was still too new? Because I want you to go back to that part and dust that off and have a look at that as whether or not that's a particular direction we could be looking to incorporate now.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't ever show me what it is. They just show me things on a timeline. It was about 7 or 8 years ago, and I felt by the way that they were showing it to me like it was a new sort of technology or a new technique or a new way of doing something at that time. It's probably not so new now. It's probably something that we all take for granted now. But if you look back 7 or 8 years ago, nobody really knew much about social media. The odd person was on Facebook or whatever. But then all of a sudden now the whole world can't survive without it. So, it would be something that came in around that time. look around what you were thinking or looking at that time as far as a career change or maybe enhancing your career, but you sort of think maybe it's a bit too soon, it mightn't go anywhere. That's your starting point. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but that's your starting point that will start you thinking in the right direction, can I say. But I also sort of feel that you've become so much stronger in yourself this year, Christina, too. It's like you've really learnt the power of no, have you not?
Yes.
And good, keep it up. You've practiced it really well. It'll just become very automatic soon. They're also sort of showing me, and I don't know how to interpret this, in your yard, have you got a lot of trees that lose their leaves when it comes to that time of the year?
Yes.
Okay. So was it at that time of the year for you when these changes started to happen with you, where you started to feel restless?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because to me, they're showing me it's like you're like the tree with the leaves falling down. It's like I'm shedding or I'm letting go of things, and it's like that's nearly complete now. It's nearly ready to reshoot. So that's good. Look, I can only wish you well. I think you've got a dynamic second half of 2018 coming up, and there really is nothing that you haven't already done that you should have done. I think now revisit the work situation that we've spoken about, but everything else you can leave the list blank because it's okay. We can let some surprises come in of a very positive nature and show you where you need to be going. And don't ignore anything that flashes into your mind. As stupid as it might sound, write it down and come back to it, because that may just be that key piece, that first piece to the jigsaw that we've got to build around. That, more pieces will come in to fit in around us to show us what the picture of life is going to be like. But I know you're in for some very wonderful surprises in the next few months, and it's good. I feel really comfortable with that. I don't feel uncomfortable with it. I feel that you're right on cue for where you should be. So have a great night, and lovely to speak with you, Christina.
Thank you.
Okay. We're nearly at the end of the show. Why doesn't half an hour go very quick? For those of you that want to learn a little bit more about what I've been speaking about, in a few minutes' time I'll be over on Facebook Live having a little mini workshop on the sign of Aries. So you're more than welcome to join us there. That's Amanda Hall on Facebook Live in about 5 minutes' time. Also on next week's show, don't forget we'll have our card of the week, the candle of the week, part 3 of our house series in astrology. We'll also have our little glimpse around the universe and see what's sort of happening. But please be kind to each other during the week. And we all need to say a prayer for the Bush family at the moment with the loss of Mrs. Barbara Bush today. Terribly sad. What an amazing lady, and somebody that we will all remember for the rest of our lives. So have a great week. Keep smiling. And whatever you're doing, just be kind to each other. And remember, the world goes around on smiles and love. Bye for now.